Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about things that we think are important. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about, or second hour, we talk about important. First hour is general discussion. And the second hour today, we'll talk about a little how to get the most out of office hours. We do this every once in a while so people understand how to climb the mountain, how to cross the rickety bridge, and how to get through the dangerous forest. So anyway, so we'll talk a little bit about that, about how to get in and make the most of it. Tomorrow, of course, we have education at 8:00. It's one of the best conversations we have every week. Just an incredible group of people for 2 hours talking about education. So definitely join us if you're into that sort of thing. We don't put it on YouTube, so you have to come to Zoom to be part of that conversation. And then at noon, we're going to Todd Reynolds' house using the Belfast method, and so we're going to do a remote takeover of Todd's house and help him stream to YouTube. So come check that out. And then a quick reminder that we've added on Sunday, we're going to be cooking with Ken Jordan. So Ken is going to teach us how to make nut bread. I just want you to know, Ken, I bought a new Cuisinart just so I could keep up with you. So I never owned a food processor, but I looked at the recipe and I was like, I'm going to need a food processor for this. So anyway, so I will be, Shannon and I and other people, and I don't know, are you Dennis, are you joining us for this mess? Anyway, so we'll be all joining Ken. Some of us will be joining Ken to learn how to make nut bread, paleo bread. So we're pretty excited about that. Also, a reminder that at 2:00 today, we'll be talking more about Isadora. These Isadora labs have turned into quite a thing. So I would definitely check that out if you have time. We have Andy Carluccio and Elle and Tlaloc are all, showing us the ropes of how to get this all working, and we're all working together on it. So definitely check it out. We're going to be moving to the 9:00 slot next week for the rest of December, just to give our European friends more opportunities rather than 2:00 in the afternoon. So 2:00 is like the perfect time where the Australians and the Europeans can't really join. So we're going to move that schedule around a little bit. All right, let's jump into the questions. Go ahead, Bill.
Our first one comes from Ray Harwood in Avondale, Arizona, and Ray asks or notes that during yesterday's pre-show, while training a panelist on cutting the show, a comment was made that Spotlight messes things up. I just thought that is that an issue in office hours? I use it all the time in regular meeting webinars and never saw any issue with it.
Go ahead, Rupert.
I don't think the problem is unique to office hours. It just depends on the workflow. But the problem is that if somebody spotlights something, it will disrupt the gallery view for any other of the panelists. So if you're relying on either seeing the gallery view all the time or rearranging the grid in a way that suits you in particular, when somebody else gets spotlighted, it will disrupt that. So it may not be a problem for everybody or all other meetings. It just depends if that's your workflow.
Yeah, for us, because we're having such a conversation, we're going back and forth for this structure. I'm the one that made that comment. It's pretty problematic. But for a general meeting, if you're trying to show something, it's probably okay. But just know that for the panelists, it's really distracting, because for panelists, they generally want to see everybody sitting in front of them, and that becomes complicated when you do spotlights. They can they have control. They can switch back on their own. And what we'd really wish Zoom would do is let them lock it. If I want to lock a gallery, I can lock the gallery and not ever see the spotlight. But that has not been provided to us yet. Next question.
The next one also comes from Ray. He has the second most highly rated question this morning as well. And he says, is there a low-cost audio meter app for Windows that is a standalone app, not a plugin like WLM?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, Ulean is the one that we were using for meeting meters, and it's totally free. You can pay and get a few more features there. You get some different views, so I recommend taking a look at that. But the WLM one is prettier with the bigger numbers, so you can actually see them in a small gallery view like this. It's nice to have the larger numbers and take it through OBS and use it as a plugin. So I'd probably still go with WLM, even though you have to run it OBS at the same time.
Go ahead, David. David, can't hear you.
Your mic is showing as unmuted.
Sorry,
there you are.
Sorry about that. Orban, ORBAN.com has a free meter program for both modern Windows XP, if you really need to go back, and OS 10. Pretty good, free, and worth checking out.
Okay, next question.
Douglas Carmichael is up next, and he asks, so one of the rituals I've enjoyed is the pre-show conversation, and in my humble opinion, it helps build a stronger community. I always put it on in the car in the morning. Will that continue in the office hours 2.0 era?
Absolutely. No, I'm a strong proponent that what creates community is actually conversation. So like that is the core. Like that is the little engine that generates a community is conversation. And so we'll definitely be keeping that along that little pre-show conversation, which of course extends because we have a pre-show conversation for 21 hours, and then we have a that used to be called the pre-show, but now it just runs 21 hours. But yeah, that pre-show will still be there. It probably won't be broadcasted the way we have it with YouTube, but what'll happen is that we'll all be hanging out together, and then a couple minutes before, everyone will get pulled out for mic checks, and then that'll be when everybody disappears. So right before it may not exist, but because we're going to pull the panelists into a new place for that. But that conversation will go on until 6:40 or so. Next question.
Jasmine Lee in Singapore is up next and says, for running video calls in an open plan office, would the panel recommend the Logitech Brio or Streamcam and what microphone? All need to be connected to a 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro.
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
All of them are to one MacBook Pro? That's interesting if that's the case. But anyway, I would say the Brio for the camera. And as for the microphone, anything that you can get very close to your mouth. I'd also suggest having some sort of background, like if you can get a partition wall or something like that back there right behind the people, that'll help with any type of audio issues.
Go ahead, Rupert.
Yeah, I'd suggest the Brio as well, so long as you couple it with something like webcam settings, because by default that Brio is going to have a wider field of view than perhaps the Streamcam. So you'll want something to just crop it in a little bit, and like Jeffrey says, for microphone in an office, you just got to get it as close as possible to your mouth. So either one of the little Paulsons even, but is as good a quality as you can get. Ideally, some outboard noise assist or something would be nice, but if you don't have that, then the Zoom noise suppression will do a reasonably good job. Just stay away from Bluetooth, please.
Go, Jason.
Yeah, I second the stay away from Bluetooth. I'm just going to reiterate what everyone else has said, which is the more voices you have in a space, the more important it is that you localize and isolate each voice individually.
Good, Bill.
And I just wanted to reinforce that while you see those of us on office hours using fixed desk mics, it really is better if you don't have a lot of mic technique behind you to use one of the headset mics, because it puts the capsule at a fixed distance from your mouth. And no matter where you turn your head, the sound quality is going to remain the same. That really is a help for people who don't do this a lot.
Yeah, cost effectively, obviously the Paulson and the Piles make sense. At any price, the DPA is a pretty great solution as a low profile. The other one that people swear by that I haven't had time to test yet is the Crown. Crown makes a headset mic that is sworn by Garth Brooks. So anyway, and then if you want to turn all the knobs all the way up, Sheps makes a headset. Just in case you're wondering. Someday I'll have one. You'll know. It's huge, but it's great. Next question.
Mitchell Hill, Wilmington, Delaware, here on the panel is up next, and he asks, how do you use a color chart in post that you shoot at the head of your video shoot?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Well, it's calibration is what it's all about. So two reasons to do it is color corrections primarily. You're shooting raw, you get a chart up there, you can pull it into something like DaVinci Resolve, and if you buy the right chart, so if you want to do this in Resolve, make sure you check on what charts they automatically have a grid for. It will color correct and make your footage look as accurate as it should be based on what the world standard of that color chart is, if that's the right way to say it. Mm-hmm. And then secondarily, you can use it to help make LUTs. So if you go into DaVinci Resolve, you can then use that color correction to generate a LUT, push that back to the camera, and that way what you do see coming out of your LUT on the camera will be accurate also.
Go ahead, Jason.
It's really hard to add. That answer was pretty much perfect. I will add that you can actually do this with a transform layer in Photoshop too.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, the traditional, back in the days of analog cameras and things like that, the tradition was to use a set of bars that was a standard SMPTE color chart. And if you use that in combination with the tool in the scopes called a vector scope, If you shoot that with your camera, each of those colors represents a target on the vector scope, and you could adjust the camera by putting those little bright spots inside the squares, and your camera would be color adjusted. The digital cameras are much more sophisticated now, and they do a lot of this automatically, but that's why you see that system kind of in use a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is that you need some version of the truth somewhere in that clip. So Jason showed what a lot of us carry around in our bags, the Pocket X, right? And that has a very specific thing. Now, if you look at this is, if I'm in Resolve, this is a different chart. This is actually a good example of making sure that you check the chart before you actually use it. This is the wrong chart. It's a similar chart, but I picked out a 12R instead of 24R when I sent it down, so it made it a little harder. But anyway, what you have, this is a camera line chroma de Monde chart. If I go into color, you'll see this is an array here, and I'll turn this off. So when I come in, I want to check chart, and you'll see this organization of charts here. This is the de Monde chart, the X-Rite passport. That's the one that Jason was showing. So it's there. If I go back to, let's go back to this 24, and this won't match up perfectly because it's the wrong chart. Anyway, but anyway, if I go to color chart here, and what I do is I take this and I align it. If I grab these little, there we go. I align it to the color here. And so what you're going to do is you're going to move this color in, and this won't work because this one's designed for a 24R system here. There we go. Let me pull this over so I can get it back into frame. So what you do is you line this up in the corners. You're corner pinning this in, and you can see how these all sit right on top of those gray and black values. And these sit on the color. And if this was a 24R, they would sit correctly on the color instead of the way they are right now. And from there you hit match. And this won't work because when I hit it, it's going to do something bad. So anyway, but you'll see that it shows all these offsets here. And what it will do is that will build a color reference for you to work with. And so that's how you do it in Resolve. You can also, of course, just compare the charts to one that you like. So you can basically put them over top of each other. And a lot of times what I do is I'll have one chart and I'll corner pin it over top of another chart inside of, let's say, Final Cut or something else. And I set the top one to difference. And as I pull all the color, that thing will turn black. When it turns black, at least over those colors, that means that they're matched. And then those two cameras will be matched in post. This is how you do it to set up live cameras, is what I just showed you there, or to pull those together. I would highly recommend if you're doing anything that matters that you have that chart at the beginning of everything. Just throw that chart in there. We've gotten to the point where we now send them out. We didn't do that for a while, and now we send them out and have people hold them up. I just need to hold this up for a second, so that I have that color. It just gives you a version of the truth. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is up next, and he says, if you were using a lighting visualization software, how would you build a realistic base model of a venue? Could you use photogrammetry to create a USDZ file?
Jason?
Absolutely, you can. I was working and outfitting a warehouse, and on day one, the very first thing I did was this, and it's a 3D layout of a model. This is a rough sketch, but essentially the difference between that and just a normal photogrammetry model is that has forced scale in it because it was used. I think it was the iPad Pro that I used to take it. It was an 11 gig file, and it chewed on it for a while and crashed a couple times. But Polycam is the output, and it actually worked really well.
Yeah, one of the things you want to look at for building the lighting models themselves is you're going to need to do some version of a probe, which means that you're going to have to figure out a way that you can capture all the lighting information. So Jason's capturing the geometry, and what you need is to be able to capture that lighting information. A lot of the ways we do that is what we call image-based lighting, and that's multiple exposures of a given camera. Now, the cheapest way to do that, or the easiest way, is you can get an app that will run HDR out of a Theta. This is Rico makes a little Theta. I don't usually have one within arm's reach, but I don't think I do right now. That will capture a whole 360 in 9 exposures, and then you put them back together as an HDR, and that's going to provide some of the color information. Now, a lot of film companies use. There's the people bringing up their Thetas. A lot of film companies will use a regular SLR because it's going to have more dynamic range. And so, but they still will use a rig. I tweeted out a couple days ago a video done by Weta on image-based lighting, or IBL. Incredible video about how to do it, and a little article in FX Guide. So if you're interested in really seeing how those color models get built, that's how they do it. That's how they do it for film. so it would, and it depends on your lighting simulator as to whether it's going to be able to do anything with that. But that's how, for film, that's how we're lighting 3D objects back into the scene. Next question.
Alfredo Tigolo is up next, and Alfredo in Inglewood, California says, what's the appropriate age to start learning about video production?
Go ahead, George.
I don't think there's any limits to what age they can start. My son has been since 11. His last project last year for the end of school year was delivered all on video, and he put together the whole thing. I helped him, and he cut it in Final Cut. I helped him shoot it and so forth. He's now helping out with theater in school, and I'm going to introduce him to Isadora when he gets a nice little surprise next month. So I don't think there's any. I think that where we're going right now, as far as college or whatever the case may be, is good. It's a good thing to give kids option, and I want to give him as much options as possible before he gets to the end of high school. So right now it's theater, and I'm going to introduce him to Isadora.
Go ahead, Rupert.
In terms of age, it could be anywhere from 5 to 105. I think what the appropriate time is when you need to or want to. And I think it's important to remember that if the decision is about video production today, it's important to keep in mind what you may need to or want to learn in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So it's important to remember that learning is kind of lifelong.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason?
Production is a superpower, and there is something intrinsically understandable about it for children. They don't even need to be able to speak to understand this box. You point at it, and then you look at it, and that thing that you're doing just shows up on the screen. So my answer is, as soon as they're capable, go for it.
You go to Roscoe.
Opie Taylor. Opie Taylor became Ron Howard. He learned a lot, he says, back on the set of Andy Griffith Show. So 5 years old, as soon as they're telling stories. And they don't have to learn it behind the camera. They can learn it from in front of the camera.
My kids started when they're 5 or 6 years old, so it's just part of what they do. Chris has got his filmmaker there, an expert there. When we start training people, when we found that they picked it up the fastest, and it mostly has to do with being able to read well. So 8 years old is when we found that to be the easiest for them to uptake, because they can read the manuals and they can read things online. They can definitely learn it earlier than that. It's just harder. They have trouble with the interface. They have trouble with other things like that. So it depends on but that's been 8 years old has been when we've been the most successful as far as, and if you start at 8, by the time they're 12, they're as good as most of us. They have a lot more spongy matter than we do. And they absorb it really, really fast. We had an opportunity to work with some students years ago. And by the time they were like 11 or 12 years old, they understood everything about what we were doing. And I think I say this over and over again, but we vastly underestimate the capacity of kids to learn. And we mostly make them do horrible things that are really boring through the time that they're the most absorptive.
And then they hate school. Imagine that.
Right. So anyway, it's insanity. Next question.
Our friend Lois Richter, who was on this panel yesterday in Davis, California, has the next question. When using a webinar, can you upgrade and downgrade a panelist at any time during the show?
Go ahead, Doug.
Yes, you can. We primarily use webinars when we're doing our shows, and we can downgrade or upgrade at will.
Go ahead, Rupert.
So the nomenclature in Zoom is promote and demote, but ultimately, generally speaking, you can do it at any time. I think there's a couple of caveats though. If you have predefined your panelists in advance and they have a join as panelist link, then you may want to watch out for, if you then during the show demote them, you may want to see if they can then rejoin and re-promote themselves by using their original link. I need to test that. And then if you remove them, I don't think they can rejoin at all.
I go with David.
And one other thing is, if a person is not invited as a panelist and you want to promote them, they have to be present to accept that promotion. There have been a number of times where we've done that and trying to get the person on deck, and they're just not paying attention.
Yeah, this is. I mean, a lot of that has to do with why why we always want to have a return signal back to folks, and that's why we build our systems the way we do, is so that we can have that return signal and talk into their ear, going, "Hey, David, we're coming to you next. Be ready." Next question.
Conrad, in this case, Conrad Marshall from Atlanta, Georgia, says, I'm certain this has been covered multiple times, but can someone point to an office hours after hours archive that speaks to low latency USB audio capture, please, dealing with an audio lagging video and resulting streams?
Usually the latency for USB capture is not the problem. It's the video that is the problem. So usually when you have audio lagging video is a very odd thing there's something very wrong in your system when that happens. Like this isn't like a minor problem. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, it is almost always the other way around, but I will answer the question as asked. Any webinar where the second hour has to do with sound devices and the mixed pre's is probably a good place to start.
I don't know of any. I'd have to look at it. I don't know what would cause the audio to fall behind the video. We have issues when we do that, when we're doing heavy processing of audio, but it's very, very rare for that to happen. And so there's something it's not like a little tweak. It's like there's something very wrong with your system if audio falls behind video. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael up next, and he says, when the state of Illinois initially eased COVID restrictions, they've allowed live venues to produce streamed events with a crew of, quote, no more than 10. Would Belfasting be the most effective strategy to minimize crew size, or would Universe be better?
Go ahead, Jason.
Pardon my ignorance. That feels like a distinction without a difference. The Belfast method works hand in hand with Universe, because
it didn't up until recently, but it is now. Like as of last week or the week before, or whatever. I think Universe has become more and more part of what we're doing with the Belfast method.
Yeah. Long story short, absolutely, both things.
Yeah. Go ahead, Roscoe.
If it speaks Isadora, it has to speak Isadora. That's my new standard for if it's going to work in a remote operation.
Yeah, the main thing is that you have to really build the system from the ground up to do what you're trying to do there. I think that even before COVID, we were moving more and more to less and less people on site. Like it was definitely something. And the reason a lot of times for us is that the people with the technical capability to do what we wanted to do, oftentimes flying them around wasn't practical. Like we're losing days and days and days of them in the air rather than just having them. So what we had started to do already, again, pre-COVID times and the before times, was we want to have experts that are available. Like, so for audio example, Brian can be available for lots of different things. We can have people with less experience on the ground executing the event, as long as the person who is advanced can check in at any point in time and literally take over the mixer. Like when we did events in Moscone where we'd be managing 10 or 12 rooms, and we had, who we had to have for audio engineering in each room. But Brian, all of those would snake into Brian's, and he would have laptops and literally move their sliders for them. And so there'd be like, he'd move them up, they'd move them down, he'd move them up, they'd move them down. Then we'd call him and say, hey, stop touching. It's like, stop. Like we're, central control has is telling you how this is going to sound. And so being able to have, you still want people on the ground at times, but you also, the resources, the expert resources that are available are so much greater when they don't have to travel. Next question.
Next one comes from Jens in Sandpoint, Idaho. And Jens says, what USB-C charger do you use to power BlackMagic microconverter SDI to HDMI 3G?
Ken.
Yeah, you can use almost any charger. It has an extremely low power draw. I think it's 1.6 watts. I've done it from a battery pack. So literally almost any charger will power that.
Yeah, go ahead, Mitchell.
I got a kick out of seeing all the panelists diving under their table to see what kind of USB they had plugged into their converter. But the one it can come with when you order it, if you're ordering it new, order it with the USB charge is the easiest thing to do. And like Ken said, just about anything will work. It doesn't draw that much power.
Jeffrey?
If you want to add anything to it, I saw these at CES a couple of years ago, did an interview with them, did a review of them. It's Mophie's This is I can't remember the full name on it, but this can actually jumpstart a car. And when I first got my Atem Mini, I plugged this into here, and with the Atem Mini, it got about an hour and a half worth of charge through it. So if you're hooking up more than one, this might be the option for that. Or if you're hooking up more than just the device, it might help on that.
Go ahead, Jason.
Only thing I can add to this pretty complete answer is just a quick refresher in physics. Amperage times voltage is wattage, and a standard USB 2 port yields 5 watts.
Yeah, and so it's pretty much anything. What I use is all those ones that I think Apple doesn't ship anymore. I think that was their big thing. They don't ship the power bricks. But I have all these little wall warts that Apple uses, and I use them with those things all the time because I don't use them for anything else. Having an object that takes up that much space that only has one output is not something I carry around very often or have around very often. And so those all just go into a box, and they literally are used for chargers for this kind of thing. Like I can just plug something into it. Next question.
Scott Mueller in Germantown, New York says, tips, techniques, this is going to be long, I think, and accessories for cable management in your workstations, because despite my best efforts 2 weeks later, what a mess.
Go ahead, David.
I'm a big fan of the TechFlex stuff. They have a product called, it's cable braiding. They have one line that's called Flexo Wrap. That's a Velcro wraparound thing. The other one that they do have is a raceway for if you're in a carpeted thing. This is a Velcro carpet raceway to cover up cables. It's pretty handy.
Yeah, there was some moment where someone showed us the Velcro raceways like for carpeted floors. I was like 6 years into heavy production. I was like, how did someone not tell me about those before? And we just buy 100-foot rolls of them and stick them in there. And we just cut them they're so inexpensive. We would just cut them to length and let them go. But the best thing is you want to add another cable, you just roll it up. You just pull up one side, you put another cable down, and you push it back down again. There's no tape, no fuss, no muss. Go ahead, Rupert.
For under desk type situations, I keep mentioning these things from IKEA. They're really useful just to throw under, just your everyday desk. You can put one or two under there, and they'll hold cables and even power adapters and things like that. But yesterday in After Hours, there was a very detailed discussion about Velcro and some good ideas about putting little Velcro dots on the undersides of desks, and then using little Velcro wraps on the cable and just sticking them up there to hold things neat
Is
and
it
tidy.
wrong that I like envy people who have OCD sometimes?
we just all get along. That's all. We all anyway, Mitchell.
Yeah, I agree with Rupert. The cage or the thing with the holes in it that you can bolt onto your desk makes a lot of sense. And if I have a bunch of cables like on the back of an Atem, which is inevitable, I use this little sock with a zipper in it, and it does a great job of holding the cables in a nice little bundle and managing it so you don't have cables going willy-nilly all around your desk.
Go ahead, Jason.
I will remind you that Here to Record has an amazing thing that will just allow you to chart your cables beforehand. It will allow you to, decide what gets connected to what, and it's far and away the fastest way I've ever seen to do this kind of thing.
Jeffrey?
I've been utilizing my 3D printer for this, and I've found these clips, amongst many others that are up on Thingiverse. This is a one-piece build, so it will latch up and close up like that. It's got a screw hole on the top, so you can put it on there or keep Velcro on it. I have these up on my house, holding up my Christmas lights right now, because they're so versatile. I can take them down fairly easy.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm in the middle of this right now around me behind my background, and I've got about 7 products that have been helpful in it. My favorite so far are these guys. They are sticky tape channels that you can open up, and if you're doing something exterior, they have good tack, but they're not pull the paint off kind of tack. So it's great to open them up, run cabling down them, and close them back up. And they make them all the way up to about 3/4 of an inch. So you can do a whole series of runs. I'm using them for power runs. Back over to some lighting. Spiral wrap. I've got a ton of this stuff hanging around. This is the traditional, if you got a bundle of cables and they're just a little unsightly and you want to keep them together, this is that split plastic spiral wrap tubing. And my latest and most favorite thing is this big sleeve. It's got plus and minus Velcro on the two sides. So you can turn it into a tunnel that is either white or black on one side. And then it has a bunch of attachments. So if you've got a really big group of cables, it can turn into visually nothing in the background. So I use all of these and more, and I'm in this world right now big time.
There you go. Next question.
Next question, moving on to George E. Kennedy Jr., Washington, D.C. Anyone watch Annie on NBC last night? Where were the mics hidden?
Go ahead, George.
So I think it was really interesting. I'm just going to cut to this real quick. So let me just go to full screen. You could see right in this area right here, what was interesting for me is that microphone seemed like it had a larger opening. I don't know if it was being used, if it was omnidirectional or directional, but it seems it was being used to pick up audio from elsewhere also, from his microphone. But it seems to have a large opening, so I'm just curious if any one of the audio gurus here can tell me what that was.
I don't know which one it is. I did have a conversation with an audio engineer that worked on a pretty high profile Broadway play that was really popular. And they talked about the fact that they had something like 25 different mics that they used, and there was no rule. It wasn't a DPA or a Countryman or a Sheps or whatever. It was like all these weird things that they would do, and they would build it, and it was built for every person. So they would, just like we pick out different mics because we sound good, where they put the mic made a difference in what kind of mic they used. So mics over the ear would be one group of mics, and then they have a group of mics for the women, a group of mics for the men, and then they would, where they position it, is it coming down from their hair? Is it hidden in their clothing? Is it there? Because in all of this stuff is, and it's I'm trying to get them on. so we'll see if we can get them on. But it was just like a mind-blowing experience talking to them, because it was just, they just talked through all of the stuff, and every single person is treated completely different. They're rigging the mics, everything else. And so it didn't sound like, at least for them, that there was any specific rule to what they put on. They said, for little plays, you do it all, everyone gets a headset mic or whatever. But once you do high profile plays, or high profile Broadway executions, it becomes, there's a whole science and art and obsession with it. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, there's a YouTube video on that Atem Savage did, where he visited the stagecraft people that did all the audio and a bunch of other parts of some show. I can't remember what it was, when they were in San Francisco. And it's fascinating. Yeah. It's really, really fascinating. Yeah. Highly recommend. Go check that out.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
The men and women who do this at Broadway are just, I think they're geniuses. I remember seeing a touring production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. It was Sam Harris, who was a guy, I think, on one of the singing shows on TV, who was very popular. And he came out on stage in one part of that play, and he was literally in a loincloth. And I suddenly went, wait a second, how have they mic'd him? He sounds perfect, and he's got nowhere to hide a mic. I went to NAB that year, and I actually asked them in one of the booths, and they said, yeah, this is the Broadway guys. They put a hair mic in his wig, they ran it down his back, they put moleskin on top, and did all sorts of makeup to absolutely hide that. Put the transmitter in the diaper, essentially, that he was wearing. So these people are literally the best of the best working in the world, and I'm in awe of their creativity in getting the job done so that you can't tell anything different is happening on stage.
There you go, George.
So just for those of you who didn't know, Annie was live. So, and Alex, you're right, a lot of the kids had mics right implanted in the ear. Mm-hmm. So kudos to all those engineers that worked that, because there's a lot of moving parts when you have a big cast like that that's live and trying to keep that audio going.
Yeah, go, Jason.
Just one reiteration. Atem Savage is a wonderful human being, and his YouTube channel is not to be missed. It's truly a treat.
It's good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Tobias Moss in Minneapolis is up next. For the TriCaster in my synagogue sanctuary, how could you recommend using clip playback?
Go ahead, Guy.
The TriCaster is wonderful in the fact that it does have clip playback, so you don't need to get an external playback device like a HyperDeck or an AJ Key Pro. Traditionally, that is what we'll see in a lot of installs. It is an external playback as well as recorder. The older TriCasters, if you put too much load on them, they could crash, hence the name Crashcaster. But the modern ones are really good, and I would say just use the internal playback, and you can use it either feed feed clips in, that you record natively, or you can have clips transcoded into the format. That's going to be the important thing to remember is walk through some tests, get them in the format that the TriCaster wants, and then it'll play back those clips smoothly.
Yeah, we had a hard time with it. I will admit. I don't know which one I can't think of which one we had, but it was a kind of a constant issue with the playback. Mostly not crashing, but loss of frame, loss of sync, sluggish playback. All those other things were things that were kind of indicative. And most people that I know that are working broadcast, if they're using smaller broadcasts with TriCasters, they externalize their playback. Now most of them are. They're using. One person I was talking to, they use a TriCaster, but they use an EBS for the playback. So there's a lot of playback systems that you can add to it. But there's we use Softron as well as HyperDex as well as PlayAppy are the ones that we're using a lot of. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, we use the playback built in, but there is an inherent problem with most videos that you have to bump up the volume in the dB per clip. So make sure that when you do use it, that you do play out each video separately and play it all the way out. And then you can adjust each play out video, individually. So, and then we don't record on the TriCaster, we record on a HyperDeck. So, like Guy said, don't push the TriCaster too much, because
it's
God
fragile.
knows it has its own mind. Sometimes it's not nice.
Next question.
Next one comes from our own Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia. He says the panel suggestions for celebrating 25 episodes of Conversations with Tony Mobley.
All right, go ahead, Jason.
For those of us who have done radio for a while, I'm reminded of an age-old oldie but goodie, which is the countdown. I think maybe if you were to go down the 25 most important things that you've learned during the last 25 episodes of Conversations with Tony Mobley, I think that'd be a wonderful episode.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
That's a great answer. I was just going to say suits and ties, Tony, because you are the classy arm of office hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
Next one comes up from our friend George Butters in Halifax, Nova Scotia. He says, if spotlighting causes problems with office hours, are you letting Zoom swap to speaker view automatically, or is the producer switcher doing something manually to promote individual speakers to the main view?
Somehow you're on a different... Where are you asking?
Where'd that question go?
He's one advanced.
That's weird. What happened?
I don't know. I have no idea. What I see is one from Mitchell.
Okay, so Mitchell Hill, Wilmington, Delaware. What settings would you use to upload a full 1080 video to Vimeo Cloud? VBR 2-pass, CBR, or 20 megabits a second?
For Vimeo, if you're doing Vimeo and if you're not doing playback, then you're going to want to use variable bitrate. So playback wants to be a CBR, and if you're streaming, you want CBR, constant bitrate. If you're actually going to just do VOD, variable playback, with a target is going to give you more quality per bit, because it's going to be more efficient where it needs to be and not as efficient where it doesn't need to be. So it'll allow it to adjust. So that's what you're gonna. That's what I'd recommend is a VBR 2-pass. The 2-pass takes a lot longer, and where you're going to see benefits in a 2-pass compression is the transitions. So transitions, especially from close-ups to wides and wides to close-ups, is where you start to see degradation if you don't have a 2-pass in that process. Just watch Netflix for a little while, and it's one of the reasons I can have a hard time. It's getting better. For a couple of years, Netflix had a problem with transitions from close-ups to wides in their compression pass, but it's gotten better. But that's indicative of not having a second pass and not doing predictive compression and laying the keyframes correctly. Next question.
Yeah, that was my fault. George Butters was actually next on this list from Halifax, and this time he asked, when someone changes states in Zoom from breakout room to main room, or from webinar attendee to presenter and so forth, any chat messages posted before the change aren't visible. They only see new posts. Is there a workaround for this?
Go ahead, Rupert.
You need to be careful trying to work around this, because when chat systems do this, it's mainly for privacy. It's if you have panelist chat and then somebody comes up into the panel, they may not be, the panelists may not want to have them exposed to something that they were discussing before. And that same challenge exists in any chat system. And if sometimes when they roll that feature in, they call it persistent chat or something, but generally it's coupled with then a notification to people a notification to people chatting saying your chat may be exposed to people who join later, because you may not want them to see that.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, what Rupert said, it is a privacy issue, so therefore you have to use a separate chat system in order to maintain.
Next question.
Buglis Christie, looks like in Bucharest, Romania, says, if you need to extend the cable from BlackMagic's PRO6k to your Atem Pro, what converters do you use to cover 30 meters in length?
Go, Jason.
Blackmagic has a really bad reputation for falling off when it comes to SDI, at least down, 30 meters or more. You can, of course, you already know this, take two, three bidirectional I'm blanking, sorry, SDI to HDMI converters, use SDI as the throughput to put two SDI cables, and that will be the same on both sides, essentially using them as baluns for an HDMI cable. That's one way to do it. And of course, at 30 meters, I hate to say it, but you might be approaching fiber pretty quickly.
Does BlackMagic sell a converter box for the Ethernet? They're kind of their Ethernet standard. For some reason I thought that was part of the announcement.
They have one that I ordered and it doesn't exist yet.
Okay. So So at 30 meters, SDI, conversion to and from SDI should work fine as long as you have a high quality SDI cable. To Jason's point, once I hit about 50 meters is usually when I switch over to fiber. And so I'm going to switch that to fiber. Although I haven't tested being able to do the remote control of the 6K over a fiber converter, though I think it will work if you use powered fiber converters, because it should carry the bank data because they're designed to do that. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I'm just using a regular 30-meter HDMI fiber cable that was off Amazon for like $200. They've gotten cheaper and it's been working for over a year now. So depending on how delicate your run is, you can just use one of those. If you have control over the environment, then I'd say go cheap and just get one of those. Just like Jason said, if you want to convert it to SDI, I like the Decimator MDHXs. Are really hard to find right now, but a couple of those are problem solvers to have in your kit anyway. So may as well grab a couple of those.
Yeah, the MDHXs. The only issue with that is the latency. They add a couple frames when they do what they're doing. That I notice inside the decimators. I find that those multi-directional converters are faster because they're doing less processing. So that's the only thing that I've had issues with. The only reason I stopped using, I did use what you're suggesting. Corning made some that we started using. They were a little more expensive, and when they broke, it was really unfortunate. So to what Guy was saying, that having it in a place that you control a lot is good. If you're going to run those cables constantly, I'd rather have converter boxes with relatively inexpensive SDI. 30 meters of SDI is expensive if you buy it off the shelf. If you make it, it's about $50 with all the pieces. Next question.
Mitchell Hill in Wilmington, Delaware, up next. Now that some of us are returning to public events, is it appropriate to include sneakers as business casual? I walk miles when doing a live event and need to protect my feet.
Go ahead, George.
Because I'm backstage a whole lot, I pretty much wear show black sneakers. So it could be New Balance, but it just needs to be black. I don't come in anything with white, whatever the case may be. You could get more comfortable shoes. I use a company called Allen Edmonds, a little more on the expensive size. But once you get to a certain age, you want to take care of your feet because you lose your feet. You pretty much can't work.
Go ahead, Alex.
I used to do that, show black trainers, just pick what we call sneakers trainers in the UK. Sneakers, which were just black but with no logos, but you could see lots of stitching lines on them. But recently I've been using Allbirds shoes, which are like trainers underneath, but they look like this. So they have a kind of, they're just matte black and they look totally fine, but they're as comfortable as sneakers. I walk a couple of hours in them every day. So yeah, Allbirds.
Go ahead, Bill.
Depends on the corporal culture. I found myself in a couple of circumstances where your kicks are a mark of plumage. And I've been in some places with high-end people, and they were in business suits and the most outrageous sneakers in the world, and that was their corporate culture. Some creative places like to give their employees the chance to kind of show off a little bit, like it used to do with a pocket square. And I find that sneakers, and when sneakers got above $500 a pair in some cases, and sometimes even more than that, I don't think they're looked down on as dressing down as much as they used to be, particularly among young people.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, one of my clients is New Balance, and luckily they encouraged the use of sneakers on their jobs. And we went out to so it worked out well. But the extra thing that you need to do if you're using sneakers, and they will allow you to, is get a good set of orthotics inside that are set by a C-pad that knows what he's doing. Because I don't want to pull them out right now because I might pass out from the fumes. But a good pair of orthotics will make you feel better. I used to have a bad case of the limpies after every big show that I had to do, and now no problem.
Folks, so in general production, you can do whatever you want. Clients do make, depending on what level of client you're doing, they definitely make decisions about your footwear. And so there's a lot of subtle signaling that can be done if you're working with high-end clients. So there's little things that I do, which is I have pretty nice shoes for certain kinds of jobs. And I also have, I use French cuffs most of the time if I'm going to dress up. And those are all signaling to a certain group of people that regardless of the fact that I'm a country boy, I know how to dress up. And that is at a certain level, you just want to be conscious of that. I always dress one step below my client. So I look at whatever they're wearing and however they're dressed, and I just go one. I don't want to outdress them, but if I look at them and I know if I've worked with them a couple of times, I just look at what they're wearing and I just go one step down, right below them, not two steps and not one step above, and that usually kind of allows me to kind of fit into whatever culture they've created.
Plus one on orthotics, though. Like I've worn
Your
them for
orthotics
20 years. It's not an old person thing. You should be wearing orthotics if you're walking a lot, period.
And my day-to-day is I have some really nice dress shoes, but my dress shoes that I mostly wear and my general shoes that I mostly wear are Doc Martens with orthotics. They're comfy, they're thick, they make you a little taller. It's all good. Next question.
Chris Fenwick in California, and here on the panel most days, at least for the beginning of it, says, when Alex entered the meeting, there was a telltale yellow frame. Alex, have you been playing with Snap Camera?
I broke it. I was trying to show it off. I was trying to have fun with it.
By the way, I know how to dress up too, Alex.
What is that?
Oh. Exactly. So I was playing with it the other day and it was really fun. And I was like, oh, this is really good. And then I when I tried to do it today, it just froze. So I froze. I don't know why. It does
that. That's what I noticed. It's a very distinctive color and you don't miss it.
Yeah. I had never tried it in Zoom. I downloaded it because someone was talking about it, and I spent like 10 minutes like going through every filter that they had, and I was like, oh, these are kind of fun. And so I thought I'd have fun in the pre-show with it, but I couldn't get it. It just froze in Zoom. So I was like, okay, never mind. Which just probably saves you all from me being a complete fool in front of all of you, which is what Snap Camera does, make you a complete fool immediately. Next question.
The next one comes from George Butters, who's back, and I think this is the one that I got in the wrong slot earlier. If spotlighting causes problems with office hours, are you letting Zoom swap to speaker view automatically, or is the producer switcher doing something manually to promote individual speakers to the main view?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
This is the easiest TD job you can ever have because most of the time you just let speaker view take care of it. But once in a while, asking you a question, you swap it over to gallery. You wait for the proper person to be responding, and then you hit it back to speaker, and they just magically pop up.
Yeah, good, Rupert.
The main use case for spotlighting in office hours, for example, is to able to switch to somebody who may not necessarily be speaking at that time. You want to look at somebody's video while you're listening to somebody else. That's the primary, I think, use case. And I think typically in a office hours show, it may just happen maybe 2-3 times, something like that.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
And it's set up to follow whatever view I select. So if I pin somebody in my view, then that basically replaces spotlighting for the YouTubers.
Next question.
Bogus Christian is back from not Halifax, from Bucharest. And in this case, he says, I hear that most of you use Raspberry Pis in the setup. Can you give me an idea of how to use mine in a Stream Zoom hybrid event setup?
Go ahead, David.
I'm a big fan of the Clock 8001 by Delpis. It comes up, you can throw in certain message things to the event. You can start certain countdown timers, etc. I'll use that in webinars where we need to keep things rolling at a certain time and tell people that they're muted or that they can please stop, or a bunch of different things. It's kind of handy.
It's great.
I have several of them here in my house. We use them on premise for playback machines, and so either VLC or Playout B if you're running into a hyperdeck into the Atem, and they're great bird toys as well.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, it's video playback using Playout B is what I use them for.
And Jason?
They're just a wonderful, flexible, useful thing to have. To my immediate left, there's always a screen that has two running, one of which is the giant clock, and then the other one runs a handful of Stream Decks, and they are just fantastic pieces of equipment.
Next question.
Show friend Lois Richter in Davis, California is back with where would be a good place to ask for brainstorming on doing a new interactive low-tech birding show. Office hours, after hours, Zoom, test kitchen, or someplace else?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
After hours, absolutely. And just, realize that different people check in at different times. You may, put together a group that'll just love doing it, and they'll then come up with a time and, really flesh it out for you.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend After Hours. And Mark Horner, who's been a panelist before, is really good friends with Zasse Photo, and he'll sometimes control this PTZ. I would definitely take a look at Zasse Photo on Facebook. He's got this security camera that he uses to punch in like a mile away. It's nuts. So it's a 40X, and it was not as expensive as you would think. So I would be looking at what he's doing, and then look at some cheap PTZ so you can get around and punch in and have it be interactive.
If you're going to do it, just let us know when, because I want to come. I have a lot of birds around my house, so I'm constantly paying attention to them, and so watching them, I find them to be fascinating. And so I would love to trade notes with folks, because I have my own way of doing things, but it's definitely imperfect. Next question.
Yeah, so do I, and I'm still trying to figure out the difference between ravens and crows. They're driving me nuts. Chris Widener in Lafayette, Indiana, in discussing the DVE store experimental space for pan tilt zoom, the suggestion was made to add an element that would add motion, and Guy came up with something great, but pricey. Would this be within bounds to do as a group gift, since many could use it?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
This will become an HO train podcast, or whatever this will become. So it was a pretty amazing layout, but that's a lot of fun. So I'm not sure that we all get to benefit from it, but we could enjoy watching it. Yes.
You have an HO train with a PTZ? No.
That was what that was one of the things that he showed us, is like somebody built this during COVID. They'd put all this elaborate work into this totally 8x4 standard HO train outfit, and they're now selling it in bulk. So that was one thing that came up. I'm not sure that's the one that Guy's going to say he wanted.
Go ahead, Jason.
I would say that there is no way to do PTZ that is not expensive if you don't want to regret it. Don't do PTZ badly.
Go ahead, Guy.
So we've been experimenting in After Hours with a $1,000 conference room camera and letting people request camera control. So I just want people to get a feel for what it looked like and what it was like for in Zoom to control a camera. And then eventually I want to get some of the manufacturers to loan us some of the higher end cameras like a PTZ Optics, Bird Dog, Panasonic, whoever will loan us something. But I wanted something that was moving that we could follow and that we can play with and get a sense of the motion. And so I was asking for ideas last night. Somebody had said like an art piece that on a wall, you can go zoom into the wall and look at different art and in like a 360 round. And then I was like, I've always dreamed of having like a train set. And so I looked on Craigslist, and there was one it was expensive. It was $1,000, but somebody spent way more than $1,000 during COVID. And they put together all the little people with the river and the church and the little trucks. And so we were all just fascinated that, man, this would be cool, because it's like 8 feet. It's mammoth, it fills up their garage. So we'd have to like load it on a truck and get it into the warehouse, but then we could set up PTZs and zoom in. And people were like, man, well, then we could put a POV cam we could put the panel inside of the windows, and people are going nuts about the ideas of what we could do with this train set. So it's an idea.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah, and then get an Arduino and control it remotely, so you can back up the train, kind of like Uncle Fester in The Adams family.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
All was going well till someone said, "Why don't we do a Fenwick grocery store?" And then it all fell apart.
I in one of the many bids that I did that I never happened. The Pittsburgh Science Center has a huge train set that's unbelievable. Like they just took it all the way to 11, and they work on it all the time. And what I wanted to do in the science area, they're always changing it. And around Christmas, what I had recommended is they build sets that have green screen that will live cut, so like a train, like you're in a train thing with, and the idea is that you could sync up stuff that you shot from the model, the miniature, to be in the backgrounds of the folks that are there. So kids could create little movies, like, cause it would be from the miniature, like you're inserted into it, and all your exterior shots are all from the miniature. And then the interior shots are things going by. And they thought it was great. We just couldn't find the money. Like it was going to be a good thing, but it was going to cost, $80,000. All right, next question.
Next one comes from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He says, my monoprice 4K 4x1 HDMI quad multi-view takes 4 outputs, 2 DVI, 1 DisplayPort, and 1 HDMI from a PC and outputs a grid of 4x 1080p windows. Left side is cut off, hiding the start menu slightly. How can he fix that?
Go ahead, Jason.
Rarely have I been so disappointed by a monoprice product as this exact product. I actually called their support, reached a guy, this was at the height of COVID, got so far as to actually get the RS-232 interface to try to talk to this thing. I think it's just straight up a lemon. They made a mistake in the production, and it has to do with underscan. By the way, that's also probably the way to fix it, but no, I wasn't having any of it.
Next question.
James Hutchinson in Dublin, Ireland's up next. He says, when raising a support ticket with Zoom, what sort of response time have people experienced? Any tips on how to get quicker responses?
Go ahead, George.
Just be very specific about your issues. If it's critical to your production. Also, I think everyone has a sales rep. I've always gone to my sales rep to help expedite my issues. So that's a good route to go also.
Go ahead, Rupert.
It will depend a little bit on what type of account you have and what priority your issue is, whether you're completely down or whether it's just a routine question of some kind, whether it's a technical question or maybe an account question, and how you've raised it. The most efficient way to raise a support ticket is through their website. They've got a form for it, this one here, and that will get you a ticket number straight away. If you're trying to raise a ticket some other way and you don't get a ticket number immediately, then you could well face some kind of delay there.
Next question.
Next one comes from George E. Kennedy Jr. here in Washington, D.C. on the panel. What are the other options for video players? My go-to, the O player, is no longer pay-as-you-go.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
I've got a HyperDeck Studio Pro, which is okay. But honestly, constant panel guest Jonas has the HyperDeck B, not HyperDeck B. See, there's so many hyper names. The Playout B. And it works on a Raspberry Pi or on a Mac or on a PC, and I'm building it right now. And it just, so far, it runs circles around everything else I've had.
Good, George.
And everyone, I apologize. I meant playback for your live streams. I should have been more specific. This has always been my go-to, the O player, and they've pretty much changed the pricing model. There's no longer pay as you go. So this is the prices that you're stuck at right now. I know I'm only mentioning this because a few folks have asked me about it over in the past, about what I've been using, but pretty much this is the pricing model right now. That's going to change in December. So it gets pretty pricey. The reason I mentioned it also because Wowzer's player is coming to end of life in December, and this is what I was using in place of that. So right now I'm gonna have to look for something else. If you're not using this type of player every month, it doesn't make any sense to really pay for it.
Go, Jason.
I'm not sure, and maybe there's a huge omission here, but I feel like MIDI could fill in the gaps. It's $300 once, $350 once, and it's pretty rock solid.
Go ahead, David.
I'll second the MIDI. They're working on version 2, which has some pretty cool changes to the interface, which are very welcome.
Next question. Last question for the first hour.
last question in this grouping comes to us from James Hutchinson in Dublin, Ireland. And he says, if you're working in a 1080p workflow, what are the benefits of a 4K monitor?
Go ahead, Jason.
The benefits of a 4K monitor are that you don't end up with, too many monitors. It's too much infrastructure.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Oftentimes your cameras can produce a 4K signal. If you have a TV Studio Pro 4K or something like that, you can actually focus the camera much better on a 4K monitor.
Yeah, and the other thing is, remember that you can have 1080p and then have a ton of space for your interface. So if you're on a Resolve or Final Cut, you can see every pixel in a 1080p system and still see the rest of your interface. I'm going to let you guys talk about yourself for a second. I have to reposition this cat who is attacking my. If you're wondering why I've been like, look at this little guy. Look, he just came up and said hi.
Is that the kitty that Bat Kitty?
No,
that was like
that's the other one. It's missing right now, so we're hoping that it shows up again. So anyway, but this is the other one. So anyway, I'll be just give me 1 minute. I just got to get it out of the office. All right.
So I'm confused that it doesn't rest on your head the whole day like our friend's cat does.
There was a question that was kicked back, and I wanted to give the suggestion, something about translating in Tchaikovsky. I've had tremendous luck with obscure languages and understanding the subtleties simply going to the language department at a local university and showing up during, that's right, office hours. And straight up asking a professor of that. You will not get a more thorough answer. So I don't know who asked that, but I figured since we have a minute while Alex is fixing his cat.
Wait, that's the wrong way to phrase that. He's not fixing his cat.
It's a clean show. I wasn't being. Oh, never mind.
I think cats are delicious.
Stop it.
It's not a dead cat. It's a live cat.
Anyway, it's a cute cat. So let's get everything set up. We're going to close out the last question and get ready. We only have one question, only Sky's question.
This is going to be the fastest 60 minutes in the history of history.
That's right.
I love how lynda.com, the most commonly watched thing is how to use lynda.com. And I feel like our second hour is going to be just that.
So anyway, yeah. So the idea behind the second hour is mostly like I think a lot of times we are mysterious. You hear about us, talk about, like, if you want to find out more, go to officehours.global, and then we send you an email when you sign up. I did fix that. That was something that wasn't happening in MailChimp. But so when you sign up, you'll get an email that says, okay, register here. But we're very cryptic, and then once you get in, you don't know where to go or how to do it. And I admit some of this is by design. But as we kind of move closer to the surface, the idea is to give people a little bit more of a hint on what to do. I'm going to talk a little bit just at the top of this hour of how I approach it. And then other people here, feel free to throw in one of those, like, we'll start the discussion now kind of things so that people in this group can raise their hand and talk about how they approach it. So go ahead and throw one of those questions into Makana. But how I look at it is there's kind of a ramp. The idea is that a lot of people will see what we're doing on YouTube, and that's all they do. And I am surprised at how many people never even enter Zoom or Discord or anything else. They're just listening on YouTube. And that's great. I mean, that's the idea. The idea is that you can just jump in, you can listen to it, you don't have to interact with it. It's just a passive experience. There's only a handful of people that watch it live, but there's a lot of people that watch it later. So oftentimes between 500 and 1,000 views later for most of these, and sometimes higher. So that's kind of the introduction to at least learning from what we're doing here. From there, you go to officehours.global, you can sign up, and you should get an email that sends you some cryptic links of go here, go here, go here. And basically officehours.global tells you what's happening next. There's a schedule there that is now getting more complete because it turns out if I send Ken more information, he gives you more information on the website. So now you can see what's happening over the next couple of weeks. So the idea is to come in for those things. Beyond that, though, I think a lot of people wonder, like, how do you get into Zoom? And that link is something that we send out. Again, we send it out when people sign up, but it's just bit.ly/the office hours with camel caps, capital TOH for now, for the next month. So it's the easiest way to do that. And so, anyway, so you can join. And what happens there, as soon as you sign up for that, you start getting daily emails. So you're going to get emails that are, that tell you what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks, and any other things that we're doing. Now that is going to change as we switch to Office Hours 2.0 and we stop having the webinar, we'll just be relying more on MailChimp to send those out every day. And what's nice about that is they'll all start looking nice and designed, but I got to find a team that can help me with that. So, but the idea is that we can start building what looks more and more like a newsletter that can go out to everybody. And there's about, there's a little over 4,000 people that get that every day. There's about 7,000 that have signed up on the website. And so there's, so those are the, that's the kind of what happens there. I think that Zoom has its own culture, people coming in and getting to watch it live. I think that I don't think you need to do that. I think that the next step, though, is that the only way to get to Mukana right now is through Zoom. So if you're watching this, you have to join the Zoom. In the Zoom, there's a chat. And in the chat, every 5 minutes, what we call the chatinator, Chad Lafarge, posts a link to Mukana, and you can jump in and start asking questions. So that's where we do it. If you're watching on YouTube and you put comments into the comment thing in YouTube, we don't read those. So and we're not going to. In fact, as we move to Office Hours 2.0, we'll turn that off. We don't have it's not trivial for us to turn off the chat when we generate from Zoom. Because Zoom automatically just creates an event that has that. But we'll turn the chat off on YouTube once we move to Office Hours 2.0, because we have a better tool. So anyway, the best thing to do, if you can, is to go through that. Now, again, we're going to start opening that up more a little bit at a time. The reason we make this so hard, I think a lot of people ask why we make it so hard, is because we keep people who are serious. So you have to do a little work. There's a little bit of a hill. We joke that you have to climb up the mountain, go across the rickety bridge and through the dangerous forest to get to where we're going. And that calls out a lot of folks that aren't that serious. And generally that just creates a lot of wash. From my experience, I've been building communities for about 30 years, and having everybody work through it just a little bit turns into a sieve. It's a cultural sieve. And so that's part of why I believe that our community is so tight. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but I think that one of the reasons is that everyone worked a little bit to get there, and so the next step, though, is that beyond being in Mukana, once you're in Mukana, once you've gone through you can get into Discord, and we put that up at 6:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Right before the mic checks, it goes into Mukana. There's a link to join Discord. It lasts a half an hour long. We don't usually tell people that, so it's like this random thing. Like, how do I get into Discord? I hear about Discord and I don't know what it is, and so that's when the link pops up. Again, we make it a half an hour long. We put it at a certain time of day, and that is there specifically to have people that work at it a little bit to get in. And I believe that I'm a member of many Discords, and ours is really nice. So it's pretty, I don't know if it's the best, but it's pretty close. Just an incredible group of people that are answering people's questions and having great discussions and everything else. And so it's a really great place to be. And then in the emails that you get every day, if you've signed up, at the bottom, you'll see this little link that just says, when Office Hours isn't running, there's After Hours, and there's a link. There's no, you have to really look for it to find it. It's kind of hidden in a line there. And again, that's like after you've gone through the dangerous forest, there's like a tree and there's a branch, and you pull the branch down and you get to go in. So we're telling you that there's a tree there, that there's a branch. So we're being a little bit more open than we normally are. So that's how you can get into After Hours. After Hours runs, of course, 21 hours. So After Hours runs for the other time that Office Hours isn't running, and incredible discussions. We're doing some more labs there, but it was funny. Alex 40 Goldner jumped on and started talking about doing a little ad hoc tutorial on motion, and I got a whole bunch of discords, and we were joking before the show. It was like someone ran into the room and said, Morpheus is fighting Neo, and suddenly like everyone keeps on telling me, like I was like, I know, it's great, and look at it, but everyone was telling me that Alex is in there teaching motion, and we see that, and we've had actors and all kinds of other people just kind of wander through, just like, hey, how's it going? And we've had some pretty high end people high up people in a variety of big streaming companies and stuff stop by and have discussions with us. And so it's a really cool place. I use it. Our panelists can talk about it. I often use after hours as radio. So I'll go in, I will not take over. I will not turn my camera on. I just listen to it while I'll be hidden somewhere in the group for a little while, and I can just listen to it while I'm working. I think that people feel that you don't have to say anything, like you can just listen. What I find fascinating about after hours is that people can, that you'll get there and there's no one talking. But if you start talking or asking a question, suddenly everyone turns on their cameras and starts having a discussion. And so it's like this pre-built, like we're waiting to have a conversation about this, but we don't feel like we have to. Like, it's not like we're trying to fill time with, like a TV show. Like, we're just there, and available if people have questions or if a conversation starts to pick up. The way I look at this though, and then the next, of course, is office hours, where people start jumping onto the panel. And when we talk about getting the most out of it, and then we'll open it up to the group here. The main thing is that I look at it as some people just want to passively absorb that. Some people want to get into that conversation. I would recommend spending a little time in after hours and seeing what that looks like, and then sharing in after hours. If you have things to talk about and everything else, use that as a place to test your kit. And it's a place that you can just open up and ask, I don't understand how to use this camera, this light, this piece of software. And if there's someone that knows it, they're going to share it. And if you know it, you want to share it. That's the big thing. A lot of what we build is that when we help other people doing that, we build that connection with them. And to amplify that connection, you join the panel. All these folks that join the panel every morning. I think the great thing is they just do it because they enjoy it, and they enjoy giving back to everyone and being part of it. The benefit for it is that they really become a deeper part of the community, that's there. And I think that there's a lot of, benefits from that. If you're looking for people to partner with, if you're looking for people to hire, if you're looking to get hired, if you're looking to all those things and you have things to contribute back to the community, whether it's in after hours or office hours, it's a great way to build that connection. I find that the best way to network is service. When you serve other people, it's a great way for you to get connected to them, and so finding, a lot of folks here have found that to be useful for them. But if it comes across, the hard part with this system is that it doesn't handle inauthenticity very well. Like we're around each other all the time. If you're doing something for some reason that you're trying to get sales, or you're trying to, drum up business, it comes across pretty hollow here. So you have to be very careful about that. We have a very short attention span for sales, and so I think that, but I think that we do really appreciate people who are part of that community and part of what we're doing. And I think people want to work and want to continue to work with folks that are in that space. So those are some of the things that I would recommend to look at. And I would highly recommend helping people where something that you could contribute, asking for help where you need help. I find this to be one of the safest communities I've seen online. Is that that where you can ask anything and people are like, oh yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff we don't know, and we know if we can help you there. And I don't see a lot of communities that are quite as open, especially at the full range. I mean, you can ask something really complicated or really simple, and you'll get the best answer we can give you. The things that we are kind of the unspoken rules that I think we don't usually tell people until they do it. But obviously we don't swear on the show, and we don't talk about politics or religion. And that is mostly so that we all are attached to what we're similar, how we're similar, and not how we're different. And I think that that's helped build us a community that's there. We also try to push back on, one of the things we try to do without getting too overboard is just really think about the terms we use for things. As a kid who grew up in Appalachia, I have to think about it a lot. Just because there's terms that you use as side side comments that may not mean what you think they mean. So we try to be sensitive to that because we have people from every different religion, every different culture, every different background, in our group. And so we just want to, we are sensitive to that a little bit. And sometimes if you step out of that, you'll get a ping from somebody. It's not, we don't expect everyone to get it right all the time. And I get it every once in a while. I'll say something that someone's like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. I was like, okay, I won't do that again. So it's totally fine, but you want to be conscious of that. That process. We also tend to push back a little bit on, we can have fun. You'll see us have fun with each other, but usually after we know each other for a while, one of the things that we're pretty careful about is not, sarcasm is something we do every once in a while, but not too heavily with folks that are new. So that's like something that I would recommend. It's something that is a way that kind of puts people off. We try not to actually put people off balance as often as, oftentimes in culture, it tends to be that way. So we want to be as earnest as we can most of the time. And then at times we'll have fun, but usually the folks that are having fun with each other, you want to be clear that that's we usually have been doing it for a long time. We've done 600 plus episodes. So you just want to kind of keep that in mind. And the other thing is that the only thing I'll say about getting out is you are part of a community. This is not like an online forum or something like that. And, the other thing that I find this is the most dangerous thing to do is try to be funny. If you're funny, it's funny. You can laugh at things, but telling jokes is probably the thing that I find is the most, like, the hardest thing to get to do well in a community that it tends to be earnest. So just be conscious of that. All right, go ahead, Jason.
Wow, that was such an excellent introduction. I'm having to rethink this. Like all things in this world, college, life, just anything in general, you get out of office hours what you put into it. Mm-hmm. I was talking to another one of the panelists, one in Indianapolis, about networking nerdy things immediately after we got off the air yesterday. And it was 2 hours. Yes, I do it professionally. Yes, I helped his business. I would never in a million years think about billing him because I love what I do and I do what I love. Your only agenda should be to help people here. That's really what we're about.
Yeah, and the main thing is that you just don't know when it'll come back, and it's not, it doesn't have to either, but it generally does. Like it just as a smarter culture, like one of the really things that I think about is when I learn something new, the first thing I want to do is come up to office hours and share it with everybody because to me that's investing in people. It's if I share what I figured out with you, you're going to go take it and build it into something bigger. If you look at what's happening with Office Hours 2.0 and all these little shows and everything else, we're building a deeper connection, but we're also learning from each other rather than being static. Most of the knowledge, the thing that I learned over time is that there's definitely things that you are doing that you can't share with everybody. I mean, there's things that I work on that I can't share with everyone, but as much as I can, especially if I don't really know what the business model for it is, and it's not intrinsic to what I'm doing, I try to share it as fast as I can because I get more out of helping other people with it. I will get more out of it in the long term with helping other people with that idea right now than I may ever get personally if I hold on to it. Because especially in this group, the knowledge moves so fast that your knowledge will be obsolete relatively quickly.
Well, it's the opposite of that demotivational poster you have about meetings, right? Because none of us are as dumb as all of us. Well, but all of us are smarter than any of us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Go ahead, Tony. Is Tony there? Tony?
Yep. So, wow. It was interesting. I was talking about this very thing last night in worship service, and so I'll try to be brief. I was dealing with cancer at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was able to land in the office hour experience, and it all came at the right time. And so my entree into office hours was to help a small community house of worship, and they were really devastated by COVID, and they were not able to worship with one another. And so I saw a tweet from Alex. I saw it mentioned on Mac Wiggly, And I said, well, I'm going to go, I'm going to join, I'm going to find some answers to help this small church. And I knew I didn't have what I needed to participate, but I said, I'm going to do, and I'm going to get the answers. And so I came in with, I was talking about this last night, $150 worth MacBook Pro 2012 that was on its last legs, but I wanted to help. And so I started asking questions on how to help this community, and asking these questions for this small church. I was able to learn that I still like learning, and it was so much valuable information being shared and taught, and it mushroomed into a whole thing where I understood that what Office Hours was doing, and I'm not promoting the Office Hours Church, but it was that it was beyond video production. It was beyond, just, it was a heartfelt experience that was wrapped around video production. And I'm thankful for that. And that is in part how I was able to come up with Conversation with Tony Mobley. And this is not a fluke. And I know Alex talks often about, building communities for over, 30 years. But this is something that is truly special. And if you want to learn anything about video production, but if you want to learn more about engaging positively with people who don't look like you, who don't act like you, who don't have houses of worship that are like yours, or if you don't believe in any religion at all, or politics, or it is a forum to break down some barriers. And that is why I'm so grateful to be able to participate in this community. And thank you, Alex. I'm just going to stop talking.
Tony exemplifies how to get the most out of office hours. He came in, started with, as again, a little laptop and everything else, and now he's got his own show, and there's a whole team working on that show, and we're all learning from working with Tony's show and putting that together, and he's having these incredible conversations online, and for those of you watching, you can watch Conversations with Tony Mobley at 5:00 on Pacific Standard Time. You just search for it on YouTube, you'll find it. And so, but it is just he has sucked the marrow out of what's possible in office hours, and really taken a lot of advantage of what we're doing, and we love it. And also in that process, Tony has really contributed to an immense amount of what we get out of it. I mean, I think that there was a bonding moment, to your point, with the Raspberry Pi, the infamous Raspberry Pi, as no Pi left behind, and we all figured it out together. And there was a bonding moment there that happened because of it. And, Tony was a core piece of that. So anyway, it's anyway, that he's a great example. Go ahead, Alex.
I think one of the important things to know about office hours is do not be shy about asking your question. Because 33 years ago, I was, as a young man, was running this business doing desktop publishing in central London. And every single person who walked in there had never even touched a computer before, let alone knew what a mouse was or what a menu was or commands were. And each of those people taught me so much of a perfectly reasonable, sensible person who had perfectly function in their life, but they just didn't happen to know this. And this is the attitude of people on the panel. The attitude is, you might be worried if you see that it's been done hundreds of times before, that somebody asked this question yesterday. We're totally happy to answer that question that was asked yesterday, because we're learning every single time we even answer it. So do that. And another thing is, office hours is about a system and about sharing that system and sharing all the systems that we use to make things happen. And as well as the technical side of systems, there's also the emotional and political side of systems, small p political, how to deal with clients, how to deal with contributors. So it's all here for you. Wait for the subject to come along or ask the question about it. So it would be great.
Yeah, definitely probably there's no safer place to ask the question. It's so easy to slow down your development by feeling like you have to know what you're doing. I find it to be, and I think I've gotten better at this doing office hours, of just being okay with saying, I don't know how that works. Like especially when I'm doing the Isadora thing with Andy, I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't remember what you told me to before. like I don't know what that thing is. And there's something very freeing about it. And it really opens up an incredible opportunity to learn when you can say, I don't know. And we're fine, again, as Alex said, we're fine to answer the question again, because we're just only going to be better at it. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, kind of along those same lines, I've been surprised at how much better a listener office hours has made me, because most of my jobs have been in places where I've had to instruct or help people, and I find myself talking too much. And my wife has brought this up occasionally over the course of our marriage, and here, the value of listening to multiple voices and stopping your internal dialogue of, oh, I can fix that, and just absorbing has been really refreshing. The other thing that has been surprising is, because of this process, I get to watch my friends every day, watch the body language and stuff like that, and people that I have actually even known. I was noting George Tannady. I've seen George at NABs for probably 15 or 20 years. He's been a figure in the back. We've never been at a table at the same time so that I could really sit down and have a conversation with him. And it wasn't until office hours that I started getting to understand his depth and his expertise and things. And it just makes me feel good to know that I'm not spending so much of my time ignoring the real important things of the people that surround me. That's one of the things that office hours has helped me open up to.
Yeah, and I think having these open conversations and truly helping other people and having, again, conversation, whether it's in office hours or after hours, is the ultimate networking, but authentic. Like, you're just finding the people that you really like to hang out with and finding the people that you'd want to work with. And it's so much more powerful, in my opinion, than, handing out cards and trying to follow up with people. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yes, so I have been watching office hours now for 2.5 months. I had a look back at my emails, and the first 3 weeks or so I just watched, and then I started getting involved, and I've jumped in with both feet, and it's been great. I've had some equipment, cameras, and the microphone I'm talking into now and stuff for a long time, and hadn't had a reason to use them. So that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed, that I'm now getting to use my equipment, and I've got it set up. I've started spending money on more equipment.
We are expensive.
Dangerous. Indeed. That's a dangerous hole to fall down. But I've got involved in the Belfast method. I'm now involved in the graphics group for Office Hours 2.0. And the opportunities are just fantastic.
And one thing I will say is that we're going to start putting out the invitations next week to sign up and tell us what you might be interested in as far as volunteering, and or really, more of it's, I don't know if I want to call it volunteering as much as apprenticeship or something like that, because it really is more of that than it is, it's really us figuring out how to do things. So anyway, I would recommend, if you have the time. If you don't have the time, don't feel like you need to do anything. You'll learn from us. But if you have the time and there's something that you're interested in, it's an incredible way to learn how this all works. And your participation makes a difference for everybody. It'll accelerate how much we learn as a group as well. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Oh, sorry, I was involved in the chat. Yeah, really, mental health is really the wonderful thing that happened here. We all went through a very difficult time. I went through a family, personal difficult time, and just having this place to come to and talk to people who share your, thinking and just the expertise. When you do have a question, there are incredible experts here that don't mind answering those questions. I'll leave it at that.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, there's a ton that I get out of office hours, but what I want to do is give something to the audience just to help with some of the things that are on the website, and that might help. I'll just cut to it. So this is the homepage of the website. You see live now, so that's where that one is on here. But all the second hour, well, not all the second hours, most of the second hours So if you saw or show you just want to jump to the second hour, you see, if I can highlight it here. So will that work? Anyway, there's a highlighted link that points to the second hour of the show. So for example, like Zoom audio setups, if I click on that, that will jump me straight to the second hour of that part of the show. When you click play, it jumps directly to the second hour. There's also in the schedule, but there's a search box right at the top there, so you can type in stuff to search for any of the content that's on here. Obviously, this is a repeat of the email, so that's always a good place to come. You know, when Alex says, you know, look in the email, there's always a copy of it on the schedule page, and that's just a breakdown of that. Along the side here, what I try to put in are when we have any special guest, they're listed down here in alphabetical order. So like H2R Gear, so you can click on that link and then go to that section of the H2R Gear show. And that goes on for when we do our office hours specials. So you can see here, so office hours 2.0, and that's all the 2.0 shows are listed there. And there's a few hidden Easter eggs as well. So like on the about page, I don't know what Alex knows this, I might have to remove it, but we'll show now. If you click on Alex's name, because when a question is asked a lot about, you know, describing office hours, and I still find the best one was when Alex was on Mac Break Weekly, and Leo asked him that question, and Leo when Leo finally kind of got it from when Alex was describing that. So there's a link to that section of Mac Break Weekly on the website. If you click on Alex's name, that's on there. But I won't go on, otherwise I can go on. There's a lot
on the website. There's a lot of data that you can get and figure that out. So it's definitely very valuable, and I would definitely use that as a way to guide your way through that process. Go ahead, George.
I'm not going to try to take up too much time. Bill kind of mentioned, Bill, you know, we've known each other for a while now, from afar, from Vegas and the communities. Thanks for your service to your community in California. This office hours just happens to be a big global community online, but Bill and I have been doing service to our communities for a while. So thank you for the service that you do with your community. Alex always mentions the keeping politics and religion out, and I respect that. Those of you who know me, I could get a little political sometimes, and I don't do too much religion, but it has helped sustain us to stay away from the politics and religion on office hours. I think what I'm seeing now after 18 months, and it affects me also, is the mental health bit. I think for me, as I see our industry moving forward now, and the things we're doing office hours has helped to sustain us, but the shifting every day of COVID or the pandemic is really starting to affect, I think, a lot of us mentally. We're saying, okay, we're going to move on to 2022 and things are going to start taking shape again. And suddenly here we are again. And I'm looking at the greater landscape of folks that I know in my DC community. I mean, high-end folks that are starting to put out articles that are saying, you know what, this is really starting to affect my business. This is really starting to affect my bottom line. It's starting to affect me mentally. And I know I can't mention names, but on office hours a couple of nights ago, you know, a person stated that, you know, I know we don't talk about religion and politics, but, you know, and we had a conversation for a few minutes, and you could see where folks are actually being affected by the pandemic, and we're being affected by how things are going. I mean, for me personally, my kid is a junior in high school, and man, he's being robbed of his high school years. And I don't know what's going to happen to him in the next couple of months as far as preparing him for college, because I don't see where the kids are really being able to harness and prep themselves to get to the college level. And bringing it back to where we are as an industry, and Roscoe kind of mentioned this briefly, the whole mental health bit. I know we don't cover that in office hours, and it's not a easy subject to tackle, but I think it's starting to affect a good chunk of us in the industry moving forward, and how do we move things forward, and where we're going to be next year. So I just want to thank you, Alex, for this platform. It's been great, and it's going to get better. But I think we're gluing ourselves together with the technology side of it. But there's a lot of us in the background going, man, this is really affecting me in a different way moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that community is always the place that you're going to find the best support. So you can pack up a bunch of savings, or you can have a bunch of equipment, and you can have a bunch of business and everything else. In the end, every time I've had a downturn, I had a pretty hard downturn before COVID with my company and everything else. And what got me through it was the community, the people that I knew, the people that I had made a difference for at some point in time in the back. I mean, it was very much it's a wonderful life kind of moment for me, that everything was kind of, in the middle of it, it really was like a wonderful life, but it ended up being, the same thing where people kind of came and rescued where I was. And I really got something out of that. And that was that the people are the thing that matters the most. And we will, and I think that what we want to do is keep on connecting to each other online, because this community means that we can learn how to do whatever's next and help build, we're building, what we're building next. If you watch what's happening inside of Office Hours 2.0 and the Mobley process and the Belfast method and the cooking and all the stuff, there's this primordial ooze, and things are coming out of it that are growing out of that. And as it comes out, that's the future of broadcast, like what we're building, and we're not trying to figure out what the future is. We are the future, of what's happening. Go ahead, Jason.
And to that end, I think maybe if you're tuning in or watching this later and seeing, oh, this, now I'm going to get a perfect little checklist of how to get the most out of office hours. Why are these people speaking extemporaneously using I statements? There's a good reason for that. I've seen Alex in the real world for maybe 5 minutes, spent probably as much time with the guys on this panel as maybe my girlfriend more time. But, other than that, I remember seeing on the news, like, everybody's kind of going nuts during COVID. And I will never forget the first time we all watched an Apple event together. There was this wonderful moment where I completely forgot about the pandemic. And it was just, I realized it was the most wonderful Gestalt collective experience, I think, of my adult life. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say to listen to what people are doing and see if you can lift them up. Like the first time Dennis wanted to hear more about PTZs, I was like, hey, want to jump in a breakout room? I'll let you take control of an AWS instance. Or actually, I think it was, he didn't have a PC, so I loaned him a PC. So it's just like letting people know what you want to do, and they might have the tools or the resources to pull something out and let you try it. And the other thing is looking around at what people are using. So what mic is Jason using? And I want to sound like him. Or Chris just told me behind the scenes that this mic isn't very good, so this is one not to use. But yeah, it is that go fast together thing, because one of the things that I've picked up is a Discord group with a handful of people that we talk constantly during the day, and we're figuring out AWS stuff, and it's super cutting edge to where we're knocking down the doors of presidents, and like there's people that I can reach out to because I hear the need, and I'm like, you guys got to get this done. This is a need in the community, so get it done. So I can use some of the connections that I've built up over 20 years in this business to be able to help the community get through where they wouldn't be able to get through.
Absolutely. David?
And I'll just keep it simple, but it gives me a place to exercise the things that I practice, both technical and philosophical, without the fear, knowing that I can fall and there will be those around me to pick me up or put me back on that right path. And it's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, you should know as you get into this, is that this is really a place that you can experiment, and it's a safe place to experiment and figure things out. And it's you can find places to support you, especially in the area of media and virtual production. Wherever you need help, you should try to get it. And wherever you can help, whether that's volunteering on something or working on some small piece or building something out or whatever, when you contribute back to that, you're becoming more and more part of that community. Let's jump to the first question.
Absolutely. We've got a good little list of them here. Sky Gleason's up first. He says, from Seattle, regional meetups have been fun for the Pacific Northwest chapter of Office Hours. Where is the value of in-person meetings?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Knowing people are 3D and real, and supporting your small little local restaurants. I've enjoyed the time just spent with people informally, and I think that'll always be valuable. Although I think After Hours has filled a big need there too. We did this before After Hours kind of came into its maturity, and we thank Carmi so much for kind of making it happen and launching it, and it's wonderful.
And the thing is that I think that the in-person is really valuable, and it's a lot of fun to actually meet folks that are here. And what I think is funny is that when I meet folks that are from here, somewhere else, if I haven't traveled that much, but when they come through here or whatever, that you have this instant connection. Like, you're not trying to figure out how to know that person or whatever. We all know each other from online. And then I think that as we go back out into the world eventually, that, we have this whole new community that we can be part of, and I know that there'll be some point where I go to Europe and I'll be in somewhere and everyone will take trains in. We did this with Pixel Core one time where we had like 50 people showed up in London and we all had a big dinner, and it was marvelous. So those are the kind of things that I think we'll end up doing in the future. So I do think, and I even think that when it comes back to physical, eventually we're going to have a studio probably here first in California, but my goal is to grow it big enough that we have multiple studios where we get to actually work with each other, and those are things that are part of our group somewhere down the road. Next question.
Todd Rains in Allen, Texas is up next, and he says, I'm really confused by Discord. Can you do a quick walkthrough of how I gain access, where you chat during the show, and so forth?
So the thing is that if you're in Mukana, you're where we chat during the show. So you're already there. And so once you're in Mukana, all you have to do is wait for 6:40 a.m. You'll see a link pop up for Discord. And then at Discord, you'll click on that link, and if you already have Discord installed, it'll or if not, it'll ask you to install it. If you already have it installed, it'll just add you in the community. And from there, you're going to see a bunch of forums. And those forums are going to be a place that you can, ask. I mean, there is a lot of conversation going on. And before we answer anything, I prefer not to show any screen captures of Discord, but we can talk through what those things are. Go ahead, Roscoe.
I was going to say, I leave Discord open just during the show because it's the one place I accept notifications during the show. So if you really want to get a hold of me, bang me there. But it's wonderful.
I remember you're going to point to point. Most of my communication every day is in Discord at this point, with people, so that's pretty good place to usually get a hold of me as well. Next question.
Which is also about Discord. Rob Collins in Kansas City says, how is the Discord meant to be used? I've joined it, but I get lost among the many channels.
As you work through it, click through it and watch it. These are just lots of discussions. It's a giant forum. Now, the thing that I think most people do is they use it just to talk to each other. Like, you can message people that are within it and have discussions. And then from there, if there's certain interests, look for where those interests are. And those are a good place to ask questions. So, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's not something that you have to get a certain thing out of. It's mostly looking for things and asking questions in those areas. Next question.
Glenn Mead in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada says, as a new lurker, what's the best way to get started with Office Hours? Are there mentoring opportunities or a chance to pair up with locals?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's After Hours is probably the best way to, kind of go ask for some mentoring. Virtual, it doesn't have to be local, but certainly when new people have come in that I don't want to mention names, but somebody came in that was local to me, and we went and had a nice lunch and just talked about what he could get out of the community. He was already doing production and that kind of stuff, and so yeah.
Go ahead, John.
After Hours, exactly what Roscoe said. It's the practice area for Office Hours, and you'll get a good taste of the community there. And then when you're ready, and you'll get feedback there. When you're ready, you can come on the panelists on Office Hours.
Yeah, and I think that with After Hours also is the best thing to do is just to listen for a while and just listen to people talking. You'll get a flow of how it works and what people do. And you'll also figure out who knows what. So you'll know, oh, this person's in After Hours right now. I can probably ask this question, and you can just ask that question any old time. But if you'll learn that there's certain people like, oh, that person's in here. Let me ask that question. Or there's this, but that's, and use it up though. I mean, an incredible resource, and people will just sit there and just walk through, and it's fine for you to walk through something, because if you're having that question, people may not ask that question, but they'll sit there and watch, and they'll learn from you walking through it slowly. Like the Isadora stuff is, we walk through it very slowly because Andy has to tell me how to do something, I have to do it. And that forces it to go very slowly, but we're all really learning how it works. It's not just an overview. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael up next with, when would the Mucana API be developed so that we could write utilities against it?
Soon. There's already some of that are already tied into the new Office Hours 2.0, but there's a lot going on with Mucana, so we have to get through a couple things first. Next question.
Next one comes from Rich Clemens in West Virginia. He says, I find Office Hours very helpful with ideas that I want to search for more info. Sometimes a link is posted, but more often the name or company or the product goes by so fast that it's tough to grab. Adding a feature as show notes by the recorder, is that possible?
I go to Roscoe.
Well, if you go into Mucana right now and put /?, you'll get the other Mucana commands, and there's one in that's /Mike-A, and that's to honor a gentleman who early on did a wonderful job of collecting all the links that were posted during the show, and now you can get the questions. So you can actually put the command /Mike-A, and you can grab a set of notes from any show during the show or in Mucana. You can do it after. I think Mucana resets about midnight Pacific Coast time, but you can grab those notes, reorganize them, type them, text them, do whatever you need to do with them for that day.
And I believe Sky moves them into Office Hours, into Discord.
Yes,
so there's a show notes there as well that you can take a look at. And we're going to get better at that, but it's everything takes time. Next question.
Ike Potter in Hanover, Germany up next with, I thought there was a good rule to use real life full names to participate within Office Hours or After Hours, but recently more surnames or abbreviations are seen. If so, why is this allowed?
We're pretty hardcore about not using it in Discord to make sure that everybody has that there. We've been a little loose about doing it in After Hours. I will admit that I interact less with folks that don't have real names. like if you don't have a real name there, I will admit that I view them as if you're not using a real name, in After Hours, I kind of view like you're not really playing. Like, just to be clear, like how I view it, like you're kind of playing it your way rather than a way that becomes part of that community. So I allow it, but I frown on it. so it's like it's what's allowed and it's okay to do it. Like, I'm not going to kick you out. There may be some point where we tighten that up. In Discord, we'll just knock you out. like you just get I've been a little bit easier going about it in After Hours. If it became something that was endemic, I would probably stop it, because I think that it not having your real name in there is undermines the foundation of the community. So that's the I've wrestled with that of hardening that, and we most likely will at some point. So just letting you know, but we put up with it right now. Next question.
Ray Harwood in Avondale, Arizona says, there are different communication and learning styles. Should there be an Office Hours bootstrap instruction on video or a web page in a downloadable PAF or some other sources?
PDF, yeah.
PDF, sorry.
Yeah, Roscoe.
Yeah, early on we were helping a lot of teachers in their instructions, and so there was kind of a collection. I'd put together a thing called the Golden List, but I'd much rather talk you through it because there's still a lot of variations in every suggestion you put into a list of some sort. There's we want to deal with people on a personal basis, and with After Hours, I think that's really the best way to approach it.
Yeah, it really is all part of the same community building. Asking for help is your introduction. Like, how do I even get to this thing in Discord, or how do I do this thing? Is the beginning of asking questions, and people helping you is the beginning of that process as well. So there's a temptation to want to just have a manual or just not want to interact, but we're really built around that interaction. And so it is built a little around fostering that process. We will build more tools for that, but it's something that I do think about a bit. Okay, we're going to go pretty quick here. Tony?
I just wanted to say that the knowledge base is always evolving, and so that's something important to be thinking about.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, because a question can really focus this process and make it more efficient. For example, if you were asking for help in getting your Zoom up, and I ask, do you have a mixer available? If you say, yes, I have an Atem Mini, or no, that's going to completely change the direction I take you through my instructions on how to get it working. So the more you can interact, the faster and simpler it goes.
And what I will say is that while manuals and guides are valuable, the most efficient way to learn something is to ask somebody else. And usually you don't have that because people don't want you to do that. They call it call deflection. They don't want you to actually call them and ask them a question. So they build lots of tools that make it automatic, but there's a real value on many levels to just asking someone how to do the thing. It's customized to you, and it's oftentimes much faster, especially when you have a series of experts like the ones that we have in office hours and after hours. Next question.
Rich Clemens in West Virginia is up next. I have a Discord account with several servers. Is there a path to add office hours to that account?
Yeah, you just need to be here you just need to be in Makana, which you already are if you ask this question, at 6:40 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and then you can you'll see the invite for our server, and then you can jump in there. Go, Jason, real quick.
Yeah, the trick here is you have to be logged into that Discord account that you want to add office hours to when you click on that link. And that'll do it.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael says, what would you think of an outreach to middle or high school media and technology teachers to bring younger people into the office hours fold?
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, if we could package together a group that could just do a session on Final Cut Pro or meet a specific need. Yeah, I mean, this group goes pretty wide, so we could do networking or even something that a teacher wants to teach a module on and provide 3 experts that wander in there. It would do a tremendous benefit to us.
Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Push people to Saturday education hour.
Yeah, the Saturday Education Hour is really built for providing that for the teachers, at least. I think that there's a bunch of complexities to bringing the students in, so we have to be kind of careful of that. But as far as supporting the teachers, it's pretty interesting expertise at 8 o'clock on Saturdays. I would highly recommend checking in, whether it's philosophical or technical questions. We deal with it all on Saturday morning. We don't put it on YouTube because it just makes it allows the teachers to speak more freely. Next question.
George Butters is back from Halifax, Nova Scotia. For a week or two after the boxes are unpacked with our end-of-year goodies, would it be possible to soft schedule workshops around specific tools, maybe duplicated and offset by 12 hours to avoid those 4 a.m. sessions for some?
I'll go ahead, Jason.
You know, George brings up a really interesting point, which is, of course, office hours is not recorded, and that is very much intentional. And correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, is certainly not going to change. It's designed to be a safe space and designed to be an anything goes, extemporaneous, whatever the moment is, grab the zeitgeist and run. To that end, we are not insensitive that, the Pacific and Mountain and Central and Eastern time zones that the Americans on the panel live in is a very small segment of the rest of the world. And I don't think that's lost on us. I think any suggestions you have for, specific guided things can at very least be part of possibly a second hour.
Yeah, we can do second hours and also after hours. If you ping me on Friday and say we want to do an after hours at this time, we're trying to not schedule at first more than one a day. But my guess is within the next 6 months, we'll get to a point where there's probably 4 sessions a day that are going on at some point in time in the day. And those will be driven by the people who want to lead them. So like what time they decide, we're going to try to build sign up systems so that people can sign up for them. And so that we know there's a bunch of people that are interested and this is the time zone that they're in and so on and so forth. So we're going to work on ways to organize that so that people can know what time that is. What I don't want to do is eventually office hours will fill up. I mean, after hours will fill up. There'll be breakout rooms that are just all about this and they'll be 24/7. There might be 4 or 5 of them running at a time. That's a year or 2 down the road, but as we scale, the reason we don't do that right now and the reason I'm careful of that is it's really easy to end up with a bunch of empty rooms and it feels empty. So we're kind of slowly building towards a critical mass. And as it gets to be, when you see more than 100 people often, we've only been up to 100 people once. That was last week or earlier this week. And when we hit that all the time, then we're going to start subdividing, and adding more things into another piece. We just want to make sure that general room, if you walk in and ask a question, there's enough people to answer it. Like if we lose that core opportunity, then we'll lose a lot. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael says, I participated in 3 to 4 Belfast, written more questions than I can count, and fell in love with Isadora. What other opportunities could be beneficial?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, just say keep doing what you're doing, and somebody who has a need. There's plenty of freelancers here that are being called in. Liberty's called in people, Sky's getting work. There's different people that once they see the skill set and they have a need, I call them ZJs. You might need a Zoom jockey just to come in and admit people. So that's an easy position to fall into as you get better in Isadora, or I'd be digging into Universe. This morning I was knee deep in Universe programming buttons for a bird dog camera, but it takes a long time to program up, down, left, right, put the icons on. So once you learn stuff and people know your knowledge, they'll hire you. So if that's what you want to do, if that's your opportunity, or if you just want to volunteer, sometimes we just need somebody to run a PTZ camera from afar. I mean, we'll get 3 of them in a venue, and it's just like, hey, we just need you to follow the guitarist. Simple gig, and pays whatever, $100, like for 2 hours, or like whatever it is. But just be available and show us what you.
Yeah, and I think that the thing you want to look at is as much time as you have. You don't want to overextend your time, but as much time as you have. Jump into the projects that look the most interesting to you and keep learning and interacting with folks, because there's just an incredible treasure trove, whether it's the Belfast method or the Mobley process or Office Hours 2.0 or the stuff we're doing with Isadora on the labs. All those things are ways to build that up, and how that pops out, you have to kind of give it time to mature, because this stuff is going to mature over the next year. We're going to see a lot happen. Next question.
Next comment from Lois Richter, who's here on the panel a good little bit, from Davis, California, says, After Hours sounds like an old-fashioned gentleman's club, but without all the restrictions.
Go ahead, Jason.
Hi, Lois. I mean, I think of it as just the opposite. I think of, what we're doing right now, the main show, as Sports Center. And this is an imperfect analogy, but, it's the Sports Center of all the actual best stuff you wish that you had time to participate in After Hours. So it's exactly the opposite in my head.
Yeah. Go ahead, George.
Hi, Lois. Old-fashioned gentleman's club. I think that's always kind of scary to say. I think we try. It's at Saturday mornings, as Alex always mentions, you're going to see a different faces on the panel. This is a very welcoming group across the board. So, and I think there's a lot of restrictions. Yes.
Go ahead, Tony.
So I would say that it is not, I would say that it's not a gentleman's club. I would say that it's a welcoming environment where it may seem as if there are gentlemen who are present, but I can guarantee you that there are a very diverse group that are looking and listening.
Yeah. And I like to think of it as a speakeasy. But we've often joked about Pixel Core being, the old boys network that isn't limited to boys, or isn't limited to old, and isn't limited to anything else that's there. But it is something that we develop close relationships with each other by means of trading ideas and supporting each other, in that area. And there's lots of networks that have done that. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is up next. Is the Office Hours 2.0 team structure patterned after the PCX team structure? Will the PCX digital daily system be used for graphics workflows?
I forgot that was up there. So it's up on SourceForge. We will be rolling out teams that probably over time that probably resemble the Pixel Core structure, because it was really effective. But we're doing that kind of organically. Next question.
Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota asks if there's any possibility to have a recording after-hours workshops for at least the office hours-ers to watch.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a possibility, but I love the informality, and I like the fact that as soon as you turn on a recorder, sometimes people feel like they have to be a little more perfect, and it just takes away a little bit of the flow.
Yeah, that's been the concern, is really recording changes the thing. And we just saw it. And so that's why After Hours doesn't do that. And so you really just have to be there, for those things in that area. There may be sessions that we do in the future that are in breakout rooms that we may record. and then post only for office hours members. But that's probably a little ways out. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, last night when I was on with improvising how motion works to an After Effects user, it was just sorry, I can't remember. It's ridiculous. I was glad that I was just effectively talking to one person, and a few times other people chimed in, and I felt much more comfortable doing that, and I'm much more likely to come back and do it again. But if it's scheduled, I'll make a bit more of a plan, and maybe we'll record that.
And that's why we actually don't record it is because then you feel like, okay, now I have to get it scheduled and I have to work it out and I have to do all these other things, and then you don't do it. Like not Alex, but I don't do it. Like I go, oh, like for me to just show up at 2:00 and sit down with Andy and talk about Isadora is doable. For us to take time out of our day to build something that's ready for that is a completely different thing. And we want to make sure that we're not slowing down the transfer of information to do that. Next question.
Roy Myers in Bel Air, Maryland says the focus on the long day on 10/16/21 mentions a second hour about Keynote, but it isn't on YouTube or Office Hours Global, at least that he could find. Is this saved anywhere? Thanks.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, the long day, if you're talking about second hour, the long day, that's the education hour. And we, and as Alex said, we don't do recordings of the education hour. But if you do go to the website, go to that little search bar, type in Keynotes, there are 2 shows that we did about Keynote, which were recorded. So you can find those on the website.
Next question.
Alex Forty Goldner in London here on the panel right now. How should people here help send people to office hours?
Go ahead, Alex.
If Office Hours is ready, I think it's worth sending people here. And the way I'm doing it is that I know what my audience as a nano influencer, because there's influencers, micro influencers and nano influencers. And I would say having a few thousand followers on Twitter and a few people looking at the blog is a nano influencer. But I hopefully know what those people are interested in. So if that's covered in Office Hours, I'm going to link to their specific time code in a specific video. I've just done a specific blog post that explains what Office Hours is. So that means in future, when I just want to link to as part of Office Hours, then I can link to that blog post to explain what this thing is as well. So that's my plan.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
First, the website. The website's wonderful. It gives a good overview of what we do, who we are, and it's well organized. Ken, great job. And then secondarily, after hours. If they just want informal greeting, just bring them into after hours. Say, hey, here's a Zoom link, sign up for this, come on in, and just, like you say, just listen for a while.
And the PC Magazine article is not a bad one. So it's pretty good description of what we do. So I thought that turned out relatively well. There's also
that's some coverage on NPR, right?
Here and Now, yeah. So and so those are both places to look, and I think we have the links somewhere for that. But I would look at those as well. I think that as a overall description of office hours, the PC Magazine one is the most complete that I've seen. There was a lot of work put into that and a lot of interviews and everything else that kind of culminated in that article. So I think that it's pretty good. Next question.
Alex Pettick has our last one. And he says, as someone who's relatively new to office hours, and in fact, this is his first question. So welcome, Alex. How do you get involved in Office Hours 2.0?
I'm going to be sending out that next week. So probably Tuesday of next week, I'll send out an invite that you can go and fill out some forms. I got to work with Ken on that. And you'll fill out some bits and pieces. I'm working on it over the weekend just to finalize it. And then within a couple of days after that, we'll put it out. It'll ask you to kind of tell us the different areas that you're interested in. And there's going to be everything from organizational stuff of booking people and checking them out to make sure that they're ready for the show to, and working on graphics. So like many of us saw Carl would put up graphics. What we want to do is have a team that's just back there building up Keynote graphics that we can cut to. That's here's the thing and the price and the thing and the and teams that are taking those notes and putting those together and working out descriptions and working out the emails that go out. And there's a lot of things that are basic, and then there's also the being able to cut the show and manage audio, and that's going to get more and more complicated because, like, for instance, if we're able to get the hardware that we're trying to do, there'll be a colorist that just sits there and like literally tweaks every single person's color that goes into the system as it goes. In universe, they'll be sitting there with just the slide. I've been figuring out, when you watch me change it pre-show, sometimes I'm a little late because I'm figuring it all out. I'm figuring out which sliders do I need to give the person to be useful. Like which slide, they don't need all of them. So which are the 5 or 6 sliders per person? And the idea is they'll be able to go through all of that. And then eventually there'll be audio and comms and production and, graphic. There's already a team working on graphics. And so there's lots of things that you'll see there. My recommendation is to do a little bit of all of it, as much as you have time for. You know, it's the big thing that you want to be careful of when we talk about getting into office hours is not overcommitting. It's really easy. There's a lot of exciting things, and there's a temptation to walk up to there's a buffet, a big buffet of lots of different things to do. Pick a couple and just take your time through them. Don't feel like they'll all be here. Like they're all it. Don't not do any of them. Don't just, you know, there is opportunities. Like right now, office hours 2.0, when we roll it out, there's going to be a lot of opportunity there's going to be some point next year where you have to have done a whole bunch of other shows that are smaller shows that we do and little other things before we're going to even let you touch office hours, because there's tens of thousands of people watching or whatever. And so we're not going to, like, you can't just jump onto that. Right now, you're going to be able to just jump onto it. So there are some things that are kind of moving opportunities, but a lot of it is not. And what is very predictable is someone will get in and they'll get excited and they'll be here all the time and they'll work on everything, and then they just quit because like the rest of their life isn't working. So you have to, you know, this is an unpaid thing, and you're part of this community, and it can be very intoxicating that you suddenly have all these people that you can hang out with and work with, and you get all this knowledge and you're learning all these things. You got to make sure that the rest of your life works. So you have to really look at your own well-being, that this needs to fit into that box. Like I would sit here all day listening. I come in at certain times to listen to the conversations and to be part of after hours. And I do that not because I don't like, you know, because I only want to do it that time. It's that I know that I can't not be in the conversation if I'm, you know, like it's so addicting. And so I come in and out when I can do it. When I know that I can relax a little bit and hang out with everybody, I jump in. If I'm working on something that I have to think about, I don't, because I get lost in it. Go ahead, Jason.
I'm reminded, let it be said here and now, there are prerequisites that, you know, everyone wants to take abnormal or criminal psychology, but you still have to pass that boring Psych 101. Pour yourself into it, because now is the time.
The most important thing is to try out the things that you're excited about and ask questions when you hit a wall. Like if you leave with anything from this, is don't be afraid to go out and download that app or do whatever, or, you know, play with the things that you were excited about around media and virtual production and everything else. And then you have this huge group of people that'll work with you and answer questions and won't care whether they've answered it 50 times before. They'll just sit there and work through it. And it's probably the only community like that in the world, in my opinion, like at this level. And so, you know, jump in and try things that you don't know how to do. And there's a lot of people to back you up. All right. It's fun conversation. Thank you to our producers for the investigative and deep questions that you asked there, kept the conversation going. And of course, thank you to the panelists who contribute to this community every single day, 600 X number of times. Really appreciate the contribution that you provide to everybody. So thank you. All right. Tomorrow is the long day. We've got education at 8, and we've got the Belfast. We got the Belfast method at noon. 2 o'clock today, we're doing more Isadora. Me and Andy, I get to look foolish for a whole hour, like I don't know what I'm doing. It's really fun. And then remember that we're cooking with Ken. There's the show, Cooking with Ken. Okay, we're making keto bread on Hasmukh and Damyanti are taking a little time off, so Ken's going to be doing the cooking. We're going to be following along, and I got a food processor, so I'm ready to follow. All right. We'll see you then. All right, take care.